Sunday afternoons always carried a certain tension in my family, but this one was different. I should have known the warning signs when Dad insisted on a formal meeting. The moment he called everyone together, I felt that familiar pit in my stomach, the kind that tells you that a storm is brewing, and it's not just any storm. It's a hurricane that's about to hit home. I sank into the floral couch in Mom's living room, coffee in hand, trying to steady myself as Eric paced near the fireplace. That smug grin on his face, it was the one he always wore when he was about to get exactly what he wanted, made my skin crawl. Shannon sat quietly next to him, nodding along, like this was all perfectly normal. But I knew better. I always did. "Thank you all for coming," Dad began, standing at the center of the room with the kind of posture you'd expect from a corporate boardroom. "We need to talk about the downtown apartment." I froze. My apartment, the two-bedroom unit at 1247 Westbrook, had been in our family for decades. Grandpa bought the building in 1987. I'd been living there for 4 years, paying utilities and a modest fee to the family trust, which technically owned it. But in Dad's eyes, that apparently didn't matter. "Eric and Shannon are expecting their first child," he continued, his tone polite but firm. "They need more space than their current one-bedroom apartment can provide. Meanwhile, Cassie, you have 2 bedrooms all to yourself." I set down my coffee, trying to keep my voice calm. "I use the second bedroom as my home office. I work remotely 3 days a week." Mom waved a hand. "You can work from a coffee shop, sweetie. Young people do that all the time." Dad ignored her and pressed on. "Eric and Shannon need the apartment. We've decided that you'll move out by the end of the month. That gives you 4 weeks to find another place." I blinked. "You've decided," I said slowly. "The family has decided," he corrected, as if that made it more legitimate. "What's best for everyone?" Eric finally spoke, his grin growing wider. "Come on, Cass. Don't make this difficult. You're single. No kids. You can rent anywhere. Shannon and I need the space for the nursery, and we can't afford market rates for a 2-bedroom. Shannon, sitting there like a tiny dagger, added casually, "And I can. Eric told me about your salary. You're doing fine." My jaw clenched. My salary, my private finances had no place in their discussion. But Dad waved it away as if it were trivial. "When it affects family resources, it is up for discussion," he said firmly. "The apartment belongs to the family trust," Dad continued. "Your grandfather intended it to serve the family's needs. Right now, Eric and Shannon need it the most." I swallowed the rage forming in my chest. Did anyone check what Grandpa actually wrote in the trust documents? Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Your father manages the trust. He knows what's appropriate." I pressed further. "I'd still like to see the actual documents." "Cassie, don't be difficult," Dad's voice hardened. That familiar edge that warned of storms ahead. "This is already decided. Eric and Shannon will move in November 1st. You need to make arrangements." I stood, trying to keep my composure. "I'd like to formally request copies of the trust documents, the building deed, and any paperwork establishing the family's authority to terminate my residency." Dad's face tightened. "You don't need paperwork. I'm telling you as your father, and as the trust manager, that this is the family's decision." I leaned closer, calm but unwavering. "Then as the current resident, I'm requesting formal documentation of this eviction." Mom's voice pitched higher. "It's family helping family." I left that meeting with all 3 of them glaring at me, their irritation practically tangible in the air. By the time I arrived at my apartment, the messages had already started flooding in. 17 texts in our family group chat. Eric calling me selfish, Mom claiming I was breaking her heart. I ignored them all, and went straight to my filing cabinet, the place where I kept the papers no one else cared to read. For years earlier, Grandpa had been gravely ill. He'd called me to the hospital, alone, and told me something he didn't share with anyone else. Through the haze of medication, his eyes were sharp, his words deliberate. "The building," he said, gripping my hand. "I'm changing the trust structure. Your father thinks he controls everything, but he doesn't read the details. Never has." "Grandpa, you should rest," I protested. "I've already filed the paperwork. The building goes to you. Sole ownership, effective on my death." Your father will get the other properties, but 1247 Westbrook is yours. He'll think it's still in the trust because he won't read the amended documents, but it's not. It's yours. Why me? I asked, stunned. Because you asked me what I actually wanted instead of telling me what you thought I should do. Because you visited every week, not just when you needed something. I trust you to take care of it properly. 2 weeks later, he was gone. I had the amended trust documents and the deed from his attorney a month later. All 6 units, including mine, were mine. Sole ownership. I hadn't told anyone. Grandpa had been right. Dad would never have read the amended documents. For 4 years, he believed he controlled the building, while I quietly managed it, collecting rent, covering expenses, updating units, and building a solid maintenance reserve. The building, originally purchased for $340,000 in 1987, was now worth over $1 million. And now my family was attempting to evict me from a property I owned. I called my attorney, Patricia Chin, first thing Monday morning. She listened carefully, then laughed. Not in a cruel way, but the sharp, professional kind that makes you feel safe. Do they know you own it? She asked. They think it's in a trust managed by my father. And your father has what documentation showing his authority? None. Perfect. That makes this simple. They have no legal ground. And if they try to force you out, they'll be in violation of landlord-tenant law. Except they're not even landlords, they're trying to move in your things. That's illegal entry, possibly theft. I took a breath and made a choice. Firm legal boundaries, I said. Patricia's voice sharpened. Then we'll set them straight. Legally. And quickly. By Wednesday, the calls started. Dad, Eric, Mom, all leaving anxious messages. I let them go to voicemail. Their tone varied slightly, confusion, anger, pleading. But the letter Patricia sent was clear. I was the sole legal owner. Any attempt to remove my belongings or occupy the property without permission would be illegal. Any further trespassing, theft, or interference would be met with immediate legal action. Even Eric got a cease and desist for using Mom's old emergency key to enter the apartment 3 times that week. Thursday, the family reconvened, this time in Dad's office. I watched him slide Patricia's letter across his desk, his face darkening as he read each line. The building is mine, I said quietly. Grandpa transferred it before he died. I've owned it for 4 years. His eyes went through a kaleidoscope of colors, shock, disbelief, anger. Impossible. The trust was amended. You never read it. The documents were sent in 2020. You ignored them. Mom's voice trembled. Why wouldn't you tell us? Grandpa asked me not to. He was right. For 4 years, you all assumed it was in the family trust while I quietly managed it, paid the expenses and collected rent. Eric's face went red. Rent? You've been collecting money from family property. My building. My tenants. My responsibility, I said evenly. Shannon tried to reason. But we need that apartment for the baby. There are other apartments available. You're free to apply like anyone else. Rent from me, the property owner. Eric slammed his hand on the desk. You're keeping it all for yourself. Yes. Grandpa wanted me to manage it. He put it in writing, filed it legally, and made sure I understood the responsibility. That's all. Mom tried one last plea. Being family doesn't count. Being family doesn't create ownership rights, I replied firmly. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, where family secrets, betrayals, and legal battles collide. Comment below, what would you have done if your own family tried to take your property? The morning after the family office confrontation, I woke to the quiet hum of my apartment, a deceptive calm that hid the chaos I knew was coming. For 4 years, I had been invisible to my family regarding the building. I managed tenants, collected rent, fixed plumbing disasters at midnight, and upgraded every unit meticulously, all without recognition. I had thought this invisibility was a blessing, it kept me free from interference. But now, invisibility had transformed into active hostility. Eric's first attempt at pushing back came Thursday morning. I was in my home office reviewing maintenance invoices, when I heard a knock that wasn't polite, it was aggressive. I opened the door to find him standing there, arms crossed, boxes in hand. "Helping you pack," he said like that explained everything. "Since you're being stubborn, Shannon and I decided we're moving in anyway. You can either leave peacefully or make it messy." I could feel the temperature rise in my chest. "Eric, you need to leave. Now." He smirked. "Or what? You'll call Dad?" "No. I'll call the police. You're trespassing in my residence." He scoffed. "You can't have me arrested. I'm your brother." I dialed quickly. "Hi, I need to report an ongoing trespassing. My brother is in my apartment, refusing to leave." The confidence drained from his face almost immediately. 12 minutes later, uniformed officers arrived. Eric tried to plead family misunderstanding, but the officers were unimpressed. They reviewed my ownership documents, the cease and desist, and the legal notice from Patricia. Their instructions were crystal clear. Leave the premises, or face arrest for trespassing. He left, fuming, humiliated, and I finally felt the first wave of vindication wash over me. I changed the locks that afternoon, notified building security, and explicitly revoked all access for my family. It was firm. It was legal. And yet it was far from over. The next few days were a blur of calls and messages, each one an attempt to manipulate or intimidate me into surrendering. Dad called first, then Eric, then Mom. I let each call go to voicemail, and their tones in the messages were a mix of disbelief and outrage. Patricia had prepared them well, and I refused to engage emotionally. Legal clarity, not emotional argument, was my weapon now. By Friday, the story had spread. Relatives were calling, text messages pinged from extended family, each with their own judgment. Some laughed, openly supporting me. Aunt Linda's message was short, sarcastic, and perfectly gratifying. "Grandpa always knew what he was doing. You're handling it exactly right." Others accused me of selfishness, keeping property while the family supposedly struggled. I ignored them. This wasn't about anyone else. It was about ownership, legality, and respect. Then came the petition. Monday morning, Patricia called. Her tone was businesslike, but I could hear the tension. "We have a situation. Your father filed a petition to contest the property transfer." "What?" My throat went dry. "He's claiming your grandfather was unduly influenced or mentally incompetent when he amended the trust." I laughed bitterly. Grandpa was lucid until the end. Every conversation, every documented note confirms it. "I know," Patricia said. "We have medical records, attorney testimony, and a timeline proving the amendment was filed months before his health deteriorated. Your father's case is weak, but it will drag you through an expensive, stressful, and public process." "Do it anyway," I said. "I won't be bullied out of what's mine." And so the battle began in earnest. The court process was grueling. Over 3 months, I avoided all contact with my parents and Eric. Shannon sent a few tentative messages, but I kept them brief, polite, professional. The family fractured. Some sided with Dad, believing I had manipulated a dying man. Others knew the truth. Grandpa had been clear, deliberate, and had trusted me to manage his legacy. Each court date felt like walking into a gauntlet. I watched Dad try to argue, to plead, to twist the narrative. But the evidence, meticulously documented by Patricia, was airtight. Medical records confirmed Grandpa's lucidity. The attorney who oversaw the amended trust testified to his clear intentions. The timeline of paperwork filings eliminated any suggestion of last-minute coercion. In the meantime, Eric didn't stop with trespassing. I discovered he had attempted to access the units under the guise of checking on maintenance, while I wasn't home. Each time, he was intercepted by building security, and each time, I sent him stern warnings through Patricia. I could almost hear his rage boiling over through the messages he carelessly left me. The family meetings had grown smaller, more desperate, and increasingly theatrical. Dad would sit with a carefully constructed look of indignation, sliding papers across the desk like evidence of my supposed wrongdoing. "This isn't just about you," he would say, as if repeating it enough would make it true. But it wasn't about me, it was about him trying to control what never belonged to him. And yet, I maintained a calm exterior. Every text, every voicemail, every attempted confrontation was met with careful, deliberate restraint. I wasn't just defending my property. I was asserting boundaries that had been ignored for too long. For 4 years, I had quietly carried the responsibility of a building they all assumed was under Dad's control. For 4 years, I had been invisible. And now invisibility was my shield and my sword. By week 2 of the legal proceedings, the psychological warfare and